The blind cellist fell into the Mafia king's arms, and every gun in the room turned toward her. But when he saw her face, he didn't order her death. He whispered one word, only her dead father used to say, Songbird. That was the moment Nora Vale realized her quiet life in Seattle had been built on a lie. Picture this rain hammering the streets, a soaked cello case on her back, her white cane slipping across a marble hotel floor, and a room full of dangerous men suddenly holding their breath. She came in looking for shelter. Instead, she walked into a war. Stay with this story because it's not just about danger. It's about secrets, survival, and the woman everyone mistook for helpless. If you're ready, like the video and comment where you're watching from. The armored SUV swallowed the sound of the storm, but it could not swallow the word Declan Cross had left burning in Nora Vale's chest. Songbird. It sat between them like a ghost. Nora kept one hand wrapped around her white cane and the other pressed against the soaked strap of her cello case. Her breathing was steady only because she forced it to be. The world around her had narrowed to small things she could measure. The soft growl of the engine, the rubber hush of tires over wet pavement, the faint clink of ice in a glass somewhere across from her, the careful silence of a man who had just ordered armed killers to lower their weapons because of her. She turned her face toward him. You have exactly 5 seconds to tell me who you are. Declan did not answer right away. That bothered her more than a threat would have. Threats had shape. They had direction. Silence was different. Silence made room for fear to invent teeth. A match struck. Nora heard the small scrape, then smelled smoke sharp and clean, followed by the darker scent of expensive tobacco. Declan did not light a cigarette. He only let the match burn for 2 seconds before blowing it out. Declan Cross, he said. The name moved through the SUV like a blade drawn from a sheath. Nora knew that name. Everyone in Seattle knew it, even if they pretended they didn't. Declan Cross was the kind of man people lowered their voices to mention. The owner of restaurants no one could afford. The silent partner in clubs where politicians smiled too brightly. The man whose family name appeared on charity walls, hospital wings, and police rumors. Nora's mouth went dry. You're the Cross Syndicate. His voice stayed calm. I run it. She let out a short laugh. It sounded wrong even to her. Of course you do. Across from her, leather shifted. He leaned forward. She could feel him studying her, not like men usually studied her, not with pity, not with discomfort, not with that awkward softness people used around blindness as if it were a bruise. Declan looked at her as if she were a locked door he had spent years refusing to open. Nora lifted her cane slightly. Stop staring. A pause. I forgot you notice. I notice everything that keeps me alive. Good. That single word angered her. Don't sound proud of me. I'm not proud, he said. I'm relieved. Nora turned toward the door, though there was nowhere to go. She heard rain sliding over the bulletproof glass. She heard another car move close behind them, then another in front. A convoy. Not an escape. A cage on wheels. She swallowed hard. You said men were breaking into my apartment. They were. Where my people reached the building before they reached your bedroom. My bedroom. She repeated each word colder than the last. You know where I sleep. Declan's silence confirmed it. Nora's fingers tightened around the cane until the rubber grip creaked. How long, Nora? How long have you been watching me? His answer came low. 10 years. The words should have shocked her. Instead, they slid into a place inside her that had been waiting for them. 10 years of footsteps that vanished when she turned her head. 10 years of cars idling too long outside concert halls. 10 years of strangers stepping in when a man followed too close on a subway platform. 10 years of scholarships approved without interviews. Medical bills cleared without signatures. Landlords who never raised rent, though every other tenant complained. She had told herself she was lucky. Luck had always felt like a lie. Her voice dropped. "You're sick." "Yes." He did not defend himself. That made her angrier. "You don't get to agree with me like that." "I know." "No, you don't know." She leaned forward, the coat he had wrapped around her slipping from one shoulder. "You watched me grieve. You watched me learn how to cross streets again. You watched me pretend I wasn't afraid every time I woke up and remembered the dark was permanent. And you never said a word." Declan breathed in slowly. "I was trying to keep a promise." "To whom?" Another silence. This one had weight. Nora felt it before he spoke. "To your father." The SUV seemed to tilt beneath her, though it was moving smoothly. "My father is dead." "I know." "Then don't use him." "I'm not." Her laugh came out thin. "You are. You're using a dead man to make yourself sound human." Declan's glass touched a surface, crystal against wood, gentle, controlled. Everything about him was controlled, and that made her want to break something. "Arthur Vale was the best man I ever knew," he said. Nora went still. No one said her father's name like that anymore, not with certainty, not with grief. People called him kind, quiet, responsible. They remembered him as the man who brought extra napkins to school recitals and kept cough drops in his coat pocket. They did not speak of him as if he had once stood inside fire. "You didn't know him," Nora said. "I did." "No. My father was an insurance analyst." Declan's voice softened in a way that did not make it less dangerous. "That was his cover." Nora felt the word cover settle over her skin like ash. "My father worked in a cubicle. He worked 3 floors beneath a private bank on 5th Avenue in a room with no windows and 3 armed doors. He drove a beige sedan. He drove that sedan because no one notices beige. He made pancakes on Sundays." "I know." Something in his tone twisted inside her. "How?" "Because when he knew men were hunting him, he asked me to memorize ordinary things about you. Your breakfast, your school, your favorite piece to play, the name he called you when you were scared. Songbird." Nora's throat closed. She hated him for saying it. She hated herself more for wanting to hear it again. "No." The word came out small. Declan did not rush. He did not press. He let the silence stretch until the SUV turned and the sound of the city changed from open street to enclosed concrete. Nora smelled damp stone, underground parking. The vehicle slowed, not stopped. Declan continued, and his voice had lost the clean edge of a crime boss giving orders. It sounded older now, tired in places power could not cover. "Your father was not an insurance analyst. He was a financial cryptographer. He built hidden systems for my father. Offshore accounts, shell corporations coded transfer routes, emergency funds, political payments, all of it. Arthur could move $100 million through 6 countries and make it look like a church renovation fund in Ohio." Nora shook her head. "No. He kept the Cross family alive when federal task forces came too close. He kept dirty money from touching children hospitals, schools. He had rules which made him difficult. It also made him valuable." Nora's nails pressed into her palm. "You're telling me my father was a criminal? I'm telling you he worked for criminals? That's not better." "No." The honesty cut sharper than any lie. Nora turned away from his voice. Her eyes burned useless and wet. She saw nothing but memory had its own cruel light. Her father sitting at the kitchen table after midnight pencil, moving over sheet music. Her father closing a notebook too fast when she came in for water. her father smiling too brightly when she asked why he had 3 phones in the drawer beneath the towels. Her father teaching her to hear the difference between fear and anger in a person's breathing. Back then, she had thought all fathers were strange. "You're lying," she whispered. "I wish I were. Why would he do that?" Declan answered too quickly, as if he had asked himself the same question 1,000 times. "Because my father saved his brother's life when they were young. Because Arthur owed a debt before he understood the cost. Because once a man is useful to people like us, leaving becomes another word for dying." The SUV stopped. Doors opened outside, but no one opened hers yet. Nora heard men moving in the garage. Hard souls, soft commands, the quiet efficiency of people trained not to panic. She held her breath. Declan spoke again. "Your father tried to leave anyway." That sentence touched something cold in her. What happened? Malcolm Rourke happened. The name carried poison. Nora knew less about Malcolm Rourke than she knew about Declan Cross, which somehow made him worse. Rourke was old Seattle money with blood under the fingernails. Shipping, warehouses, labor unions, nightclubs down by the water where girls disappeared and men in expensive coats never looked surprised. His face rarely appeared in the news, but his shadow stood behind half the city's worst whispers. Declan's voice hardened. Rourke discovered Arthur had built a master ledger. Not just accounts. Proof. Names, dates, payments, murders disguised as accidents. Judges bought officers, owned senators, financed doctors, threatened port inspectors, bribed. Arthur created it as insurance. Not for himself. For you. Nora's breath shook. "I don't have any ledger." "I know. You just said he left it for me." "I said Rourke believes he did." "Then why is he looking for me now?" "Because 2 weeks ago one of Rourke's old accountants died in prison. Before he died, he sent a message to Malcolm. 3 words. Nora waited. Declan said them quietly. "The girl lives." The garage around her seemed to vanish. "The girl lives. Not Nora, not daughter, not cellist, not blind woman. The girl. A loose end, a target, a mistake somebody had failed to bury." Nora forced air into her lungs. "The crash." Declan did not answer. He didn't need to. The memory came for her the way it always did, not in pictures, but in sound. Rain hammering the roof of the sedan. Her father humming off key because she had been nervous about an audition. The click of his turn signal. A horn. Not one horn. Several. Then his voice suddenly stripped bare. "Nora, get down." She remembered the seatbelt cutting across her chest. Tires screaming. Metal folding. Glass bursting inward like 1,000 bells shattering at once. Her own voice calling Daddy, 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 until the word stopped meaning anything. Then his hand. Warm. Wet. Searching for hers. The last thing he said before the sirens. "Listen, Songbird. Always listen." Nora bent forward, pressing her hand over her mouth. Declan moved, then stopped himself. That restraint almost undid her. "Don't," she said. "I won't." Was it Rourke? Yes. Who drove the car? A man named Victor Kane. Rourke's hitter. He died 3 years later. You killed him. Yes. No hesitation, no apology. Nora should have felt horror. Instead, she felt nothing, and that frightened her more. She sat back slowly. "My father died because of your world." Declan's reply came after a long breath. "Yes. And you thought paying for my life made that better?" "No. Then why?" "Because Arthur asked me to." "Why would he ask you?" Declan's control slipped. Just slightly. She heard it in the roughness beneath his voice. "Because he saved me first." Nora turned toward him. Declan exhaled through his nose as if dragging the past out hurt more than any bullet. I was 17 when my father decided I needed to learn what loyalty cost. He sent me with 2 men to collect a debt from a bookie in Spokane. It was supposed to be simple. It wasn't. The Rourkes had already flipped the bookie. They were waiting. His voice became quieter. I took a round through the shoulder. One of our men died. The other ran. I hid in the back of a butcher shop, bleeding into sawdust with Rourke's people searching door to door. Arthur found me. Nora pictured her father, then younger alive, carrying fear in one hand and courage in the other. He was there. He had been tracing money through the bookie's accounts. He could have walked away. Instead, he put me in the trunk of his car and drove through a Rourke checkpoint with grocery bags piled over me. When one of the men asked why his trunk smelled like blood, Arthur said he had hit a deer. A faint broken laugh escaped Nora before she could stop it. That sounded like her father. Calm under pressure. Absurd when terrified. Declan heard the laugh. He did not comment on it. He got me to a doctor who owed him a favor. Sat with me for 6 hours while the bullet came out. Told me if I died he would be furious because he hated wasting gas. Nora's lips trembled. He did hate wasting gas. I owed him my life after that. My family owed him more. But Arthur never asked for money. Not once. Then 10 years later he came to me with blood on his shirt and fear in his eyes. Nora's heart twisted. The night of the crash 2 days before. The timeline cracked open. What he knew, Rourke had found him. He knew someone inside our circle had leaked his name. He brought me a sealed envelope and made me swear I would not open it unless he died. What was in it? A photo of you. Your school schedule. Medical records. A list of people he trusted. A list of people he didn't. And one sentence written at the bottom. Declan's voice became almost inaudible. Keep her out of the dark, even if she never knows your name. Nora closed her eyes, which changed nothing. Her father had known. He had known death was coming and still packed her lunch. Still reminded her to practice scales. Still complained about traffic. Still kissed the top of her head before she got in the car. Anger rose because grief needed a spine. You failed. Declan accepted it like a sentence. Yes. That made her want to strike him. No. Defend yourself. Say you were young. Say you tried. Say something. I did try. His voice cracked at the edge, and there, for the first time, Nora heard the man beneath the name. I sent men to follow Arthur. Rourke's people killed them before the crash. I reached the hospital 20 minutes after they took you into surgery. Your father was already gone. You were 12 years old, covered in glass, calling for a man I couldn't bring back. The SUV felt too small. Nora's breathing became shallow. You were there. Yes. At the hospital. Yes. Did you see me? A pause. Yes. She hated the question before she asked it. Did I look scared? Declan's answer came softly. You looked like someone had stolen the sun and expected you to apologize for crying. Nora turned her face away. For years, she had believed that the worst moment of her life had been private, sacred in its horror, hers and her father's alone. Now Declan Cross stood in it too, a stranger in the wreckage, a witness she had never invited. Why didn't you tell me later? Because you were a child. I stopped being a child a long time ago. I know. Then why? Declan's voice lowered. Because every time I came close, danger came close with me. Because men follow power. Because if Rourke learned I cared whether you lived or died, he would have used you to gut me. Because your father's last wish was not revenge. It was distance. Nora listened. The explanation was not clean. It did not absolve him, but it had weight. She hated that weight. A guard opened the SUV door. Cold garage air rushed in, carrying concrete gasoline and rainwater dripping from tires. Declan stepped out first. His shoes touched the ground with a soft, sure sound. Then he turned back. He did not reach for her immediately. "I'm going to guide you inside," he said. "Not because I think you're weak, because the garage has 6 armed men, 3 blind corners, and at least 1 person in this building who knows your face now." Nora gripped the cello case strap. "You expect me to trust you?" "No." That surprised her. Declan continued, "I expect you to survive long enough to hate me properly." The corner of Nora's mouth moved despite herself. It was not a smile. "Not exactly. You always this charming only when covered in rain and guilt." She heard the tiredness in him, and for one dangerous second her anger shifted into something less steady. She pushed it down. "Where are we, Columbia Center?" Nora knew the building. Everyone in Seattle knew the building. 76 floors of glass and steel cutting into the clouds. Offices, private clubs, locked rooms where rich men made decisions that bent the city beneath them. You live in a skyscraper. I live above people who think height makes them safe. And does it? No. At least he was honest about that too. Nora slid across the seat and stepped out. Her shoe touched concrete. Her cane found the ground and swept once, twice. Declan stood close but did not touch her. Good. Then a sound reached her. A tiny electronic chirp from somewhere ahead. Security panel. Elevator. 2 men breathing near it. One had a faint whistle in his nose. Another smelled like peppermint gum. Nora turned her head slightly. Declan noticed. "Ethan," he said. The peppermint man spoke. "Boss." His voice was smooth, polite, a little too warm. "Miss Vale," he added. "Glad we got to you in time." Nora said nothing. Peppermint gum snapped once between his teeth. Declan's tone sharpened. "Don't chew around her." The gum stopped. "Interesting." Nora filed it away. Another man approached from the left, heavier steps. Slight uneven drag. "Miles Grady, the underboss from the hotel." "Apartment sweep is done," Miles said. Rourke's men hit the back entrance first. 2 carried zip ties. 1 had a syringe kit. They weren't there to kill her fast. Nora's stomach turned. Declan's voice went so cold the garage seemed to lose temperature. "Names. Working on it. Work faster." Miles hesitated. "There's more." Declan said nothing. Miles continued. "They tore the place apart. Mattress walls, cello stand, floorboards. They were looking for something specific." Declan's attention shifted back to Nora. She felt it. "I told you," she said. "I don't have a ledger. I believe you. Then why are you looking at me like that because Rourke doesn't make moves based on fantasies?" Nora straightened. "My apartment. Did they break my father's music box?" Miles cleared his throat. Declan answered before he could. "No." The answer came too fast. Nora turned her face toward him. "You don't know that. I had it removed 6 months ago when the lock on your window showed tool marks." Everything inside her went quiet. "You went inside my apartment." Declan said, "Yes." Nora's hand moved before thought could soften it. The slap cracked across the garage. No one breathed. Declan did not stop her. He did not move away. The sound echoed between concrete pillars and idling engines. Nora stood inches from him, shaking. "My home was mine." "I know. No, you don't. Men like you think ownership is care because you've never had anything taken from you that you couldn't take back." The words hit him. She heard it in the silence that followed. Then Declan spoke low and controlled. "You're right." She wanted him to argue. She wanted the fight because the alternative was pain. He gave her neither. The elevator doors opened with a soft chime. Declan said to the others, "Give us the car." Boss Miles began. "Now." Footsteps retreated. Nora and Declan stood alone beside the open elevator. For a moment, the only sounds were rain dripping from the SUV and Nora's own pulse in her ears. Declan's voice came from just ahead. "The music box is in my penthouse." "So are your father's original compositions, the silver bird charm you thought you lost at 16 and the photograph of you and Arthur at Cary Park." Nora could barely speak. "Why?" "Because someone tried to get in through your window that night. I moved what mattered before they came back. You had no right." "No, stop agreeing with me. I can't. You're not wrong." That broke something small in her. Not forgiveness, not trust. Something more irritating. A crack in the clean shape of her hatred. Nora stepped into the elevator. Declan followed, keeping a careful distance. The doors closed. The rise began smooth and silent. Nora hated elevators, since the crash and closed motion made her body remember spinning metal. She kept her chin lifted anyway. Declan noticed. Of course he noticed. "Count the floors," he said. "What?" "Not numbers. Sounds. Cable shift every 12 seconds. Air pressure changes after 30. The elevator slows twice before my floor because of private security locks." Nora listened despite herself. The hum deepened. A soft click. Another after a long breath. The pressure changed against her ears. Her panic loosened by one thread. She hated him for helping correctly. Declan said, "Arthur taught me that." Nora frowned. "Taught you how to calm someone without saying calm down." A memory opened, sudden and sharp. Her father beside her in a hospital bed after the crash, his voice already gone forever, but before that, years earlier, during a thunderstorm. "Count what's real, Songbird. Rain on glass, floor under feet. My hand in yours." Nora pressed her lips together. The elevator slowed. Declan spoke again. "When those doors open, you're going to hear too much. Space does that up high. Glass reflects sound differently. Take your time. Don't manage me. I'm informing you. Same disease, better suit." For the first time, Declan almost laughed. It was brief, low, unwilling. The sound startled her because it made him human in a way she had not prepared for. The doors opened. Air moved differently here. Wide space, high ceilings, soft rugs breaking up the echo. Somewhere far away, water ran over stone, an indoor fountain maybe. The faint scent of white tea cedar, polished wood, and city rain trapped against glass. Declan's penthouse did not sound like a home. It sounded like a museum waiting for a crime. Nora stepped out, cane moving in a clean arc. Marble first, then a rug thick enough to swallow footsteps. She moved slowly, mapping the room. To her left, open space. To her right, a wall. Ahead, glass. She could feel it, not by sight, but by the way air pressed cold and wide against her face. Seattle stretched beyond that glass, invisible and immense. Declan remained behind her. Good. She walked until her cane touched a low table. On it sat something wooden. Her hand found the shape before her mind accepted it. The music box. Small. Walnut. A tiny carved bird on top with one wing chipped from the day she dropped it at 13 and cried for an hour. Nora's breath caught. She lifted the lid. The old melody trembled out delicate and warped with age. Her father had built it from a tune he used to hum while making pancakes. Nora's knees almost gave. Declan was there instantly, but did not touch her. She hated that she was grateful. Her fingers moved inside the box, finding the hidden groove beneath the velvet lining. Empty. No note, no ledger, no secret. Just wood and memory. She closed it gently. "You kept it safe," she whispered. "Yes." "Why does that make me angrier?" "Because it means I'm not only the monster in the room." Nora turned toward him. "You are a monster." "Yes." But not only that. His silence answered. The truth stood between them in a shape neither of them wanted. Declan Cross was dangerous, possessive, violent, a man who solved problems with money, blood, and locked doors. He was also the reason she had not been taken from her apartment that night. Both things were true. That made everything worse. Nora touched the bird charm hanging from her cello case. The same symbol sat carved into the music box. Her father had loved birds not because they were gentle, but because, as he once told her, small things with hollow bones still crossed oceans. Declan's phone vibrated. He answered without taking his eyes from her. What Nora heard only his side of the call. His breathing changed first, then his voice. How many? Silence. Seal the docks. No police channels. Use our own. Another pause, and Rourke Declan's tone went flat. Then he knows she's here. Nora's hand tightened around the music box. Declan ended the call. The room felt colder. She spoke before he could. Don't lie. He looked at her. Rourke hit one of my warehouses near Tacoma. He left 3 men alive long enough to deliver a message. Nora waited. Declan said, he wants the ledger by midnight tomorrow. And if he doesn't get it, he burns everything Arthur Vale ever touched. Nora's fingers went numb around the carved wood. My father is dead. Declan's voice softened. You're what he touched most. The sentence landed like a hand around her throat. Nora set the music box down very carefully. All her life she had thought grief was the thing chasing her. Now she understood grief had only been the shadow. The real monster had been moving behind it for years, patient and hungry, waiting for someone to speak her name in the wrong room. She turned toward the glass she could not see through. Far below, Seattle breathed under rain and neon, pretending it was clean. Nora lifted her chin. Then stop treating me like something already broken. Declan stepped closer. Not enough to crowd her. Enough for his voice to reach her without echo. What do you need? The question was so unexpected that Nora almost missed the danger in it. Men like Declan did not ask that unless they were ready to pay any price for the answer. She thought of her apartment torn apart. Her father's lie. The crash. The word Songbird in a stranger's mouth. The ledger everyone believed she had, and the truth she still refused to look at too closely. Then she thought of the old sheet music in her cello case pages her father had written by hand, notes she knew better than prayer. Nora turned back to Declan. I need every piece of my father's life you stole saved or buried. Declan's answer came without hesitation. You'll have it. And I need a door that opens when I choose. His jaw tightened. Nora. You asked what I need. The air between them sharpened. At last, Declan said, The building stays locked tonight. Rage flashed through her. Then this is not protection. No, he said. Tonight, it's survival. Nora hated the answer because some part of her believed him. Declan moved toward a side room and opened a door. The scent of paper drifted out. Old paper. Dust. Leather. Her breath caught before he spoke. I kept his files here. Nora stepped toward the smell as if pulled by a string. Inside, the room was warmer, quieter. Her cane found a rug, then the leg of a heavy table. She reached out and touched stacks of folders, sealed envelopes, notebooks, music paper. Her father's handwriting lived under her fingertips in raised pressure marks and ink grooves. She found one page at the top, a composition, Rain over Mercer Street. Her fingers followed the notes. A tremor passed through her. Declan noticed. What is it? Nora folded the page once slowly and held it against her chest. Nothing. The lie tasted like blood. Declan did not challenge it. Not yet. Outside the room, men moved through the penthouse. Locks engaged. Security panels chirped. Somewhere below them, elevators shut down one by one. The city kept raining. Nora stood in the middle of her dead father's secrets, wrapped in a Mafia king's coat, holding a song that suddenly felt heavier than any weapon. Declan's voice came from the doorway. "You're safe here." Nora listened to the building seal itself around her. Then she answered softly. "No one is safe in a locked room, Declan. They're only easier to find." No one answered Nora at first. Her words stayed in the room with the old paper and her father's music, soft enough to sound harmless, sharp enough to make the guards outside stop moving for half a breath. No one is safe in a locked room, Declan. They're only easier to find. Declan Cross stood in the doorway with rain still darkening the shoulders of his shirt. The city glittered behind him through walls of glass, all silver weather and distant headlights, but he did not look away from her. "You're not wrong," he said. Nora let out a quiet breath through her nose. "You keep saying that like it fixes something." "It doesn't." "Then stop saying it." Declan stepped aside, giving her space to leave the room of files. Nora heard the movement before she felt it. He had a gift for making room without making a sound, and she hated that too. Men like him should be loud. They should announce danger with every step. Declan moved like danger had learned manners. Nora kept the sheet music folded against her chest. Rain over Mercer Street. Her father's notes pressed through the paper into her palm, tiny ridges of ink and memory. She had played that piece so many times in private that her hands knew it better than language. The melody had always felt sad. Now it felt suspicious. She walked out into the penthouse. The room opened around her in polished silence. Her cane touched marble, then the thick edge of an Afghan rug. Somewhere to her left, water moved over stone. Somewhere high above, hidden vents breathed warm air through a ceiling too far away for comfort. The place smelled like white tea, cedar glass cleaner, and money. It did not smell like home. Declan followed at a careful distance. "You should sleep," he said. Nora turned her face toward his voice. "Do you give every prisoner a bedtime?" His answer came low. "You're not a prisoner." She tapped her cane once against the marble. "Can I leave? No." "Then say it honestly." The silence that followed was not long, but it was heavy. "You're under my protection," he said. Nora laughed without humor. That's the kind of sentence men build cages out of. Declan moved closer. Not enough to touch her. Enough for his presence to gather at her skin like heat before a storm. "Rourke's men had a syringe kit in your apartment. Zip ties. A burner phone already connected to a signal jammer. They were not going to ask you questions in a room with lawyers and coffee. I understand what danger is. Not this kind." That made her anger flare. "Because I'm blind. Because you're Arthur Vale's daughter." His voice had sharpened, but hers cut deeper. "I was his daughter before you knew my name." Declan said nothing. "Good. Let him sit in it." A woman entered quietly from the far side of the room. Nora heard the soft slide of fabric and the controlled steps of someone used to serving powerful people without being seen. "Miss Vale," the woman said gently. "My name is Clara. Mr. Cross asked me to prepare a room for you." Nora almost smiled at the formality. "Mr. Cross asks a lot of people to do things." Clara's pause was small, but Nora heard the nervousness in it. "He does." Declan spoke from behind Nora. "Clara has worked for my family for 15 years. She is not armed. She will show you where everything is, then leave if you ask." Nora turned slightly. "And if I ask you to leave, I'll be outside the door." "Of course you will." Clara guided her not by grabbing, but by describing. 6 steps forward. Rug edge. Low table on the right. open doorway ahead. Nora appreciated the method despite herself. Whoever Clara was, she had been trained properly, or she was naturally kind in a house that did not deserve kindness. The bedroom was enormous. Nora could tell by the way sound stretched before returning. There were flowers somewhere near the window, pale and fragrant. Fresh sheets, a fireplace not lit, a bathroom to the left with heated tile and towels thick enough to muffle the world. Clara opened drawers and explained what had been placed inside. Soft clothes, sleepwear, a robe, toiletries still sealed, a phone with emergency contacts programmed, a glass of water on the nightstand. Nora stood in the middle of it all and felt something cold move through her. Everything fit. Her size, her preferred unscented soap, the kind of hair ties she used because they did not catch. Even the sleep shirt Clara placed in her hands had no scratchy label at the collar. Declan Cross had not prepared a guest room. He had prepared her. Nora set the shirt down. "I want my own clothes." Clara hesitated. "They're being dried. My concert dress, in the wardrobe, cleaned and pressed. My cello in the music room." "Mr. Cross said no one was to touch it except you." Nora gave a small, bitter smile. "How generous," Clara said softly. "He is many things, Miss Vale. Careless is not one of them." Nora turned toward her. "Care can still be cruel." Clara did not argue. "Yes," she said, "it can." That was the first honest thing anyone in that penthouse had said without blood on it. When Clara left, Nora closed the bedroom door and found the lock by touch. It turned. For 1 second, relief loosened her shoulders. Then she heard the quiet beep of an electronic security panel outside. A lock was only a comfort when no one else held the system. Nora sat on the edge of the bed and unfolded her father's sheet music. She could not see the notes, but she did not need to. Her fingers moved across the page, tracing the raised press of ink. Her father had written with a heavy hand. Always had. When she was little, she used to tease him that he wrote like he was trying to carve through the table. The first line was familiar. The second line, too. Then, near the fourth measure, her finger paused. A rest where she remembered none. She moved back. Again. There it was. A tiny mark, pressed deeper than the others placed where silence should not have been. Her pulse slowed. Not fear. Recognition. Her father had once taught her that music could hide a secret better than a locked drawer because people respected beauty too much to search it for weapons. She had thought he was being poetic. Now she was not sure. Nora folded the page and slid it beneath the mattress close enough for her hand to find in the dark. Then she lay back on the bed, fully clothed, eyes open to the blackness that had been hers for 10 years. Outside the windows, Seattle carried on without her. Somewhere below, a woman ordered coffee. A couple argued in a car. A bus driver finished his route. A bartender wiped down glasses. People lived ordinary lives beneath the rain, while Nora lay inside a palace owned by a man who knew the shape of her grief better than any stranger should. She did not sleep. Neither did Declan. She knew because near 3 a.m. she heard his footsteps pass her door. Once. Then again. Not pacing wildly. Declan did nothing wildly. His steps were measured, controlled, each one swallowed by the rug outside and still somehow unmistakable. Nora sat up. "Are you going to haunt the hallway all night?" His footsteps stopped. A beat passed. Then his voice came through the door. "I was trying not to wake you. You failed quietly. I'll go." She should have let him. Instead, she heard herself say, "Did my father know I would go blind?" Silence. The question had been sitting in her chest for hours, ugly and impossible. Declan answered carefully. "No. You're sure?" "Yes." "How?" "Because when he gave me your files, he included your vision records. Perfect sight. No genetic concerns. No warnings." Arthur planned for danger, Nora. Not that. Her throat tightened. Good. The word barely came out. Declan did not ask why. Maybe he understood. Maybe he knew she could carry her father's secrets, his lies, even his criminal life, but not the idea that he had looked at his daughter and imagined her future in darkness. Nora rubbed her thumb over the seam of her cane. Did he suffer? Declan's voice changed. Yes. She closed her eyes. Thank you for not lying. I won't lie to you again. Don't make promises just because the hallway is dark. That's when promises matter. She hated that line. Hated the way it landed. Nora stood and opened the door before she could decide not to. Declan was there in a white shirt with the sleeves rolled to his forearms, his jacket gone tie loosened. She could not see him, but she could smell soap whiskey and the iron trace of old blood. You should clean up, she said. I did. Not well. A soft exhale, almost amusement. Noted. Nora leaned against the doorframe, keeping the threshold between them. Why Songbird Declan's silence was different this time. Not evasive. Careful. That was yours and Arthur's. And now you've used it twice. Yes. Why? Because when you fell into me tonight for half a second, I was 27 again, standing in a hospital hallway listening to you call for him. I saw the scar. I saw the charm. I forgot the room. I forgot my men. I forgot myself. Nora said nothing. Declan's voice dropped. I said the only word I had. Her fingers tightened on the doorframe. It hurt. I know. No, you don't get to know that. You're right. There it was again. The truth with no defense. Nora almost closed the door. Instead, she asked, What did he call you? Declan seemed caught off guard. My father? No. Mine called me Songbird. What did yours call you? His answer came after a long pause. Boy. The emptiness of it made Nora still. Just boy. When he was pleased. Other things when he wasn't. Something in her anger shifted. Not softened. Shifted. Declan Cross, Mafia King of Seattle, had once been a child in a house where love had no nickname. Nora did not forgive him for anything. But she understood one piece of him she wished she did not. She closed the door gently. This time he did not pass again. Morning arrived without sunlight she could see. Nora knew it by the change in the building. Staff moving quietly. Elevators sealed and rerouted. Coffee brewing somewhere far from her room. Rain thinning against the glass. Clara brought breakfast at 8. Nora did not eat much. At 9, Miles Grady came to brief Declan in the living room, and Nora listened from the music room with her cello resting against her knees. She had positioned herself near an open archway because sound carried well there. Men who thought blindness meant ignorance often forgot that walls did not have to be transparent to be useless. Miles spoke in a low voice. Rourke's people are stirring up the docks. Tacoma took damage, but not enough to slow us. He's probing, not committing. Declan answered. He wants me reactive. He wants you angry. He should have chosen someone I cared less about. Nora's bow paused above the strings. Miles lowered his voice further. That's the problem. The whole city knows you pulled a blind girl out of the Rainier Grand with 6 men around her. By noon, everyone from Spokane to Portland will know she matters. Declan said nothing. Miles continued. Rourke will use that. I know. Then move her out of state. Nora's grip tightened. Declan's reply was immediate. No. Boss. No. She's a civilian. Nora almost laughed. Civilian. The word sounded fragile and clean like a glass placed too near the edge of a table. Declan's voice lowered. She stays where I can keep eyes on her. Nora set the bow to the strings and began to play. The first note cut through their conversation. Both men went silent. Good. She played Bach at first, something disciplined and old enough to make men feel uncivilized for interrupting. The cello's voice filled the penthouse deep and mournful, curling around marble and glass until the room stopped belonging to Declan and started answering to her. When she finished, Miles cleared his throat. "Miss Vale?" Nora tilted her head. "Mr. Grady, you play beautifully." "I know." A quiet cough. Declan hiding a laugh badly. Miles did not know what to do with her. Most men did not when she refused to make their discomfort easier. Declan walked into the music room. "Did you sleep number 8, no, Nora?" She set the cello aside. "Declan." He stopped in front of her. The use of his name had a visible effect. She could hear it in the way his breath caught and settled. "I want my phone," she said. "No, I want to call my friend Elise. She's already under watch." Nora stood so quickly the chair legs scraped. "What did you do?" "2 men outside her building. That's all." "That's all." Nora repeated. "You say that like assigning armed shadows to my friends is normal. It became normal when Rourke put your name back into circulation. My friend knows nothing. That makes her useful to men who want leverage." Nora stepped closer until she could feel his body heat. "You don't get to absorb my whole life." Declan's voice softened. "I already did." The confession was quiet, not proud, not romantic, terrible. Nora's anger faltered because he had not said it like a man claiming property. He had said it like a man admitting a wound had gone too deep to remove cleanly. She hated him more for making the truth complicated, then start giving pieces back. Declan did not answer immediately. Then he took out a phone and placed it on the piano beside her. "1 call. Speaker on. No names she doesn't already know. No location." Nora reached toward the sound of the phone hitting wood. "I don't need your permission to speak." "No," he said. "You need my system not to block the signal." She almost threw the phone at him. Instead, she called Elise. Her friend answered on the second ring, breathless. "Nora? God, where are you? There were police at your building. Some man in a suit told me you were safe, which is exactly what kidnappers say in movies." Nora closed her eyes. "I'm alive. That is not a location." "I know. Are you in danger?" Nora felt Declan listening. She thought of saying yes just to hurt him. Then she thought of Elise alone in her apartment, brave and terrified and completely unprepared for names like Cross and Rourke. "I'm with people who are trying to keep me safe," Nora said. Elise went quiet. "That sounds rehearsed." "It isn't." "Do I need to come get you?" "No." "Do I need to call the police?" Nora almost laughed. Police? As if the clean world could enter the dirty one and remain clean. "No police." A pause. "Nora, you're scaring me." Nora's voice softened. "I know. I'm sorry. Are you hurt?" "No." "Did someone hurt you?" Nora turned slightly toward Declan. "Not in a way that leaves bruises." The room went still. Elise exhaled shakily. "When you can tell me, tell me." "I will. Promise." Nora's hand tightened around the phone. "I promise." When the call ended, she set the phone down. Declan said nothing. Nora waited. Still nothing. Finally, she asked, "No lecture." You needed to hear her voice. The gentleness in his tone irritated her more than control. "Stop being decent in pieces. It's confusing. That may be the nicest thing you've said to me." "It wasn't nice. I take what I can get." Against her will, her mouth moved, almost a smile again. She turned away before he could hear it in her breathing. The day stretched. Nora explored the penthouse because captivity was less frightening when mapped. The kitchen smelled of steel coffee and citrus. The library held too many leather books no one had cracked in years. The hallway to Declan's office had 4 security cameras, each making a faint electric whine. The private elevator required biometric access. The stairwell door opened but triggered a warning tone after 3 seconds. At every turn, men pretended not to follow her. Nora learned them by sound. Calvin had a knee brace. Jonah smelled like clove cigarettes. Ethan Pierce chewed peppermint gum until Declan came near, then stopped. That interested her most. Ethan's politeness was too polished. His concern came half a second late. When Nora asked him where the East Terrace was, he answered correctly, but his feet angled away from her voice as if he disliked facing what he spoke to. Little things. Her father had taught her little things saved lives. That evening, Declan found her in the music room again. She was not playing Bach this time. She was playing Rain Over Mercer Street. The first notes moved through the room like rain remembering a window, soft, patient, full of ache. Declan stopped at the doorway. Nora kept playing. She felt him recognize the piece, though not the way she did. To him it was Arthur's handwriting made sound. To her it was childhood grief and now maybe code. When the final note faded, Declan spoke. He wrote that after your mother left. Nora's fingers stilled on the strings. My mother didn't leave. She died when I was 3. Declan's silence told her enough. Nora turned slowly. What? He said her name once. She stood. What Declan's voice was careful, which made her more afraid than if it had been hard. Arthur told everyone she died. It was safer. The room tilted. Nora reached for the chair but missed it. Declan moved, then stopped himself again. She found the cello instead and held the neck like it could anchor her. My mother is alive, I don't know. That's not an answer. It's the only honest one I have. Nora's chest tightened. What was her name, Lena? The name struck some buried place. A lullaby with no face. A perfume she could not remember clearly. Warm hands, maybe. Or maybe she had invented them. Why would he lie? Because Lena Vale was born Lena Rourke. Nora stopped breathing. The city outside seemed to disappear. Declan continued, each word measured. She was Malcolm Rourke's younger sister. She ran from him. Arthur helped her vanish. They fell in love. For 3 years Rourke couldn't find her. Then she left to draw him away from you and Arthur. Nora whispered, No. I'm sorry. No. The word broke this time. She backed away from him, from the cello, from the music, from the whole impossible room. My father worked for your syndicate. My mother was a Rourke. The man hunting me is my uncle. Declan did not soften the truth. Yes. Nora laughed once, but there was no humor left in her. All these years I thought I was no one. She touched the scar beneath her jaw. I was never no one. Declan stepped closer. Nora. She lifted a hand. Don't. He stopped. Good. She needed him to stop, because if he came closer, she might either strike him or collapse into him, and both choices felt like losing. For a long moment, only the rain spoke. Then Nora lowered herself onto the piano bench and placed both hands flat on the polished wood. My father's files, she said. Declan's voice was quiet. What about them? I want everything on Lena Vale. That file is sealed. Nora turned her face toward him. Not from me. He hesitated. For the first time since she had met him, Declan Cross hesitated because of something other than danger. Then he said, I'll get it. Nora listened to him leave the room. His footsteps were controlled as ever, but she heard the tension beneath them now. He was afraid. Not of Rourke, not of war, of what the truth would do once it had nowhere left to hide. Nora reached for her cello again. Her fingers found the strings. She played the first line of Rain Over Mercer Street once more, slower this time, listening beneath the melody, beneath memory, beneath grief. A rest where there should not be one. A key change too early. 4 repeated notes her father had never repeated in any other piece. The song was not only a song. Her father had left her a door inside the music. And for the first time since entering Declan Cross's golden cage, Nora wondered whether the lock had always been meant to open from her side. The lock had always been meant to open from her side. That thought stayed with Nora as the rain pressed against the glass walls of Declan Cross's penthouse and turned Seattle into a city of blurred sound. She sat at the piano bench with her cello between her knees, one hand resting on the strings, the other still touching the page of her father's music. Rain Over Mercer Street. The notes were no longer only notes. They were doors. They were warnings. They were pieces of Arthur Vale still speaking in a language only his daughter had been trained to hear. Across the room, Declan moved through the file cabinets built into the wall behind his office. He had not argued when she asked for everything on Lena Vale. He had not tried to soften the truth again. That was the worst part of him, Nora thought. He could be cruel, controlling, violent, impossible, and then suddenly honest in a way that made her anger stumble. Paper shifted. A drawer opened. Metal clicked. Nora listened to every sound, not because she trusted him, but because trust was a luxury and listening was survival. Declan returned slowly. He placed a folder on the piano beside her. "This is what I have," he said. Nora did not reach for it. Her mother had a name now. Lena. Not a ghost. Not an absence. Not the soft, blank space in family photos Nora had been told never existed because there were no family photos. Lena Vale. Born Lena Rourke. Malcolm Rourke's sister. Nora felt the room tilt again, but she refused to let her body show it. "Read it," she said. Declan was quiet for 1 second too long. "Some of it will hurt." So did the lie. He opened the file. His voice changed when he read. It became flatter, more controlled, as if he could turn pain into evidence by removing emotion from it. Lena Rourke. Born in Spokane. Raised between Seattle and Coeur d'Alene. Younger sister of Malcolm Rourke by 9 years. No criminal charges. No public record after age 23. Believed deceased by most Rourke associates. Nora's fingers pressed into the cello strings. Believed deceased. Yes. But not confirmed. No. Declan turned a page. She met Arthur through a laundering route connected to a shipping front. Arthur was tracing Rourke accounts. Lena was helping women leave Rourke-controlled clubs under false names. Nora's throat tightened. She was helping people. Yes. And my father helped her. Yes. Declan's voice softened despite his effort not to let it. They disappeared for 3 years. Arthur created new documents. She became Lena Vale. They lived quietly near Green Lake. Then Malcolm found a payment trail. Lena left first. Arthur stayed with you. Nora closed her eyes. Her mother had not abandoned her. Or maybe she had. Or maybe love and abandonment could wear the same coat when danger came too close. What did she leave behind? Declan's breath shifted. A letter. Nora turned toward him. "You have it." "Yes, read it." Declan did not move. "Read it," she repeated. Paper slid from the folder. He opened it carefully. "Nora, my little light," he began. The words hit so hard she almost reached out. Declan stopped. "Keep going." His voice was lower now. "If your father ever gives you this, it means the world I ran from has found us. I need you to know I did not leave because I loved you less. I left because Malcolm only knows how to hunt what he can see, And if he was looking at me, he was not looking at you." Nora's hand covered her mouth. Declan kept reading. "You will be told I died. Maybe that is kinder. Maybe it is cowardly. I don't know anymore. I only know your father is the bravest man I have ever met, and you are the only good thing my blood ever made." His voice caught on the next line just slightly. "If the dark ever comes for you, listen before you run. Your father will teach you how. Sing when you are afraid. Sing when they want silence. Sing because Rourke men do not understand music, and that has always made them easy to fool." Nora's tears came silently. Declan lowered the letter. "There is more." She shook her head once. "Not now." He folded it, placed it beside her hand, and stepped back. Nora touched the page with 2 fingers. The paper was old and thin. Her mother's handwriting left faint grooves where the pen had pressed down. Nora could not read the words herself, but she could feel the force of them. Lena had written like someone running out of time. A harsh vibration cut through the room. Declan's phone, then another from somewhere near the hall. The penthouse shifted around them. Men moved. Doors opened. Security panels chirped. The gentle prison became a machine waking up with knives in its gears. Declan answered. What Nora turned her head. His silence sharpened first, then his voice. "Say it again." Miles Grady's voice came through the speaker, rough with urgency. "Boeing Field, Hangar 6. They hit the convoy during transfer. 2 trucks burning. Our men are pinned inside. Rourke's people brought long guns." Declan's hand closed around the phone. "How many?" "Too many for local crew. It's coordinated. Police delayed. Someone jammed dispatch." Declan swore under his breath. Nora listened to the room. Calvin's knee brace clicked near the elevator. Jonah whispered into a radio. Clara moved somewhere in the kitchen, then stopped. Ethan Pierce stood by the entryway. She knew because of the peppermint. He was chewing again, slowly, wetly, like a man trying to keep his mouth from going dry. "Declan said I'm coming." Miles answered fast. "Boss, it smells wrong. Everything smells wrong tonight. That is exactly why you should not move." A pause. Nora felt Declan turn toward her. She did not need sight to know every man in the room had done the same. Rourke wanted the ledger. Rourke wanted her. Rourke had just attacked something valuable enough to pull Declan out of his fortress. Declan lowered the phone. "Nora." "No." The answer came before his question. His footsteps approached. "I have to go." "No, you choose to go. My men are trapped, and I am what bait with better furniture." His jaw tightened. She heard his teeth set. "If I ignore this crews that follow me, start wondering whether Declan Cross can still protect what belongs to him." There it was again. "Belongs." Nora rose from the bench. "I don't belong to you." "I know. Then stop making decisions as if I do." He stepped closer, his voice dropping until it was meant for her alone. "I am not leaving because I care more about the trucks. I am leaving because if that hangar falls, Rourke gains weapons leverage and proof that I can be moved by fear." Nora's voice was quiet. "You can be moved by fear." Declan went still. She lifted her chin. "You are afraid of losing me because you built a whole life around not admitting you cared. Now he knows. Now everyone knows. And you are still acting like control is the same thing as courage." For a moment, the room forgot to breathe. Declan did not answer. Then Miles's voice came through the phone again, more urgent. "Boss, we just lost contact with half the hangar." Declan turned away. That was his answer. He began moving with terrible focus. Gun from the drawer, magazine checked, jacket changed, men called by name, elevators unlocked on private override, the whole penthouse bent around him. Nora stood beside the piano, feeling the old letter beneath her fingers. Declan came back to her before he left. His voice was close. "Ethan stays here with you. So do Calvin and Jonah. The elevators lock after I'm gone. No one enters without my biometric clearance or Miles's code." Ethan's gum snapped once. Nora tilted her head toward him. Declan heard it too. "Spit it out," he said. A small pause. "Yes, boss." Nora heard Ethan cross to a side table, heard paper rustle, heard the gum discarded. Declan spoke again, softer. "I'll be back." Nora hated how those words landed. Hated that part of her wanted them to be true. My father probably said that to my mother. Declan flinched. "Not much." "Enough." Then he reached for her, stopped himself, and lowered his hand. "Lock the music room if you feel safer there." "I don't feel safer anywhere." His voice roughened. "I know." The doors opened. Wind from the elevator shaft brushed cold across the room. Declan left with Miles and 4 armed men. The doors closed. For several seconds, the penthouse remained full of his absence. Then the building became too quiet. Nora stood still. Calvin was near the East Hall, Jonah by the kitchen, Ethan by the entryway. 3 men, one of them chewing peppermint in his memory even though the gum was gone. Nora sat again and placed her cello between her knees. Her bow touched the strings. She did not play. Not yet. She listened. Below the building, engines departed from the garage. 1, 2, 3. Declan's convoy moving into the rain. Security locks engaged. The elevator panel gave 3 soft tones. Calvin shifted his weight. Knee brace. Jonah coughed once. Clove cigarettes. Ethan breathed through his mouth. Nora waited. Minutes passed. The rain thickened against the glass. Calvin's radio clicked. A voice whispered something Nora could not catch. Calvin answered copy. His steps moved away from the hall. Jonah followed. Nora lifted her head. "Where are you going?" Ethan answered before either guard could. "Security sweep." Mr. Cross ordered the exterior terrace checked. Nora kept her tone mild. In the rain, water can interfere with sensors. It was a good lie. Too good. Calvin and Jonah moved farther away. A door opened. Wind rushed in. The terrace. Then the door shut. Nora and Ethan were alone in the central room. Not fully alone. The building had cameras, locks, alarms, hidden men somewhere below. But in the space that mattered in the room with the cello and her father's music, they were alone. Ethan exhaled. The politeness left him with that breath. "You really are something," he said. Nora let her bow rest on the strings. "Excuse me, the way he looks at you. Like the whole city could burn as long as you stay breathing." Nora turned toward his voice. "Does that bother you?" Ethan laughed quietly. "It should bother everyone." His footsteps crossed the rug. Slow, measured, no longer pretending to keep respectful distance. For 8 years I watched men bleed for Declan Cross. I watched him cut out weakness like rot. Then you stumble into a hotel lobby blind and soaked, and suddenly he forgets what he is. Nora let her shoulders tense. Not too much. Enough to look afraid. "I don't know what you want." "No," Ethan said. "That's the part I believe." He moved closer. The scent of peppermint was gone now, replaced by tobacco under his clothes and sweat rising sharp through expensive cologne. Nervous sweat. Adrenaline. Nora's heartbeat slowed. Her father's voice came from memory. "Fear is loud, Songbird. Use that. Let them think it belongs to you." Ethan said Rourke offered me $5 million. Nora whispered, "For me, for the door, for timing, for the chance to have a private conversation." A metal sound threaded through the air. Nora knew it before he finished. A suppressor twisting onto a pistol barrel. Tiny scrape. Tight turn. Another. Her hand tightened on the bow. Ethan noticed. "Don't try to be brave. I'm not." "Good. Brave people make a mess." He stepped close enough that his heat reached her. "Here is how this works. You tell me where Arthur hid the ledger. I send Malcolm what he wants. Declan comes home angry but alive. Maybe he even forgives me after he realizes I saved him from you." Nora's voice shook. She made sure it did. "I don't have a ledger." Ethan sighed. "You all say that. I'm a musician. You are Arthur Vale's daughter. He never told me anything." Ethan's hand grabbed the back of her chair and yanked it slightly. The legs scraped marble. Nora gasped and clutched her cello. "There it is," he murmured. "That sound. That helpless little sound. I understand why he likes it." Her stomach turned, but her mind stayed clear. Distance, 4 feet, pistol in right hand, chair between them, cane leaning against the piano bench at her left knee, cello bow in her right hand, music page under the bench, Ethan breathing high in his chest. He leaned closer. "Rourke thinks the ledger is in your father's papers. Declan thinks maybe you don't know. I think Arthur was too smart to trust paper." Nora swallowed. "Then what do you think?" "I think he put it somewhere no one would destroy." Ethan's fingers brushed the edge of her cello case. Nora felt rage flash hot and clean. "Don't touch that." His laugh was soft. "There she is." He grabbed a fistful of her hair and pulled her head back. Pain burst across her scalp. Nora cried out. The sound echoed exactly as she needed it to. High ceiling, open room. Ethan just behind her right shoulder. Too close for the gun to matter if she moved first. He spoke into her ear. "Tell me, or I start with the hand." He seized her left wrist. Nora let her fingers tremble. "Please, that's better. My father didn't hide money." Ethan paused. "What?" "He didn't care about money." Careful. He cared about music. The grip on her hair loosened by a fraction. Nora let tears gather in her voice. "There's a page. In my case, I don't know what it means, but he told me if anyone ever asked about numbers, I should give them the page." Ethan's breathing changed. Greed had a sound. It was not loud. It was a small opening inside a man. "Where in the inner pocket?" He shoved her forward. "Open it." Nora dropped the bow. It clattered near the piano. Her left hand reached for the cello case. Her right searched blindly across the bench. Ethan thought she was looking for the latch. She was not. Her fingers found the cane. Rubber grip. Smooth shaft. Hidden seam beneath her thumb. Ethan pressed the pistol against the base of her skull. Slowly. Nora whispered, "My father said something else. I don't care. He said men like you always listen for fear. Open the case. He said that makes you easy to fool." Ethan stilled. "What did you say?" Nora's trembling stopped. The room changed. Not because the rain stopped. Not because the guards returned. Because she stopped pretending to be prey. "I said," Nora whispered, "you should have listened better." She moved. Her left hand clamped around Ethan's wrist and pulled the gun line away from her head. At the same time, her right thumb pressed the hidden switch in the cane grip. A blade slid free with a clean metallic whisper. Ethan cursed and fired. The shot coughed through the suppressor. Glass cracked somewhere behind her. Nora was already turning. She drove the hard end of the cane into the inside of his elbow. His arm folded. The pistol dipped. She stepped into him, not away, because distance belonged to guns and closeness belonged to nerve. Her palm struck beneath his jaw. Bone met force. Ethan staggered back, choking. Nora followed the sound of his shoes dragging over marble. She slashed once. The blade kissed his right wrist, not deep enough to kill, deep enough to open tendons. The gun hit the floor. Ethan screamed. This time, no one came. Of course no one came. He had made sure of that. Nora swept her cane low and struck the side of his knee. The joint buckled. He crashed against the piano, sending a violent chord through the room. Nora stepped behind him and hooked the cane across his throat blade angled just below his jaw. He froze. Blood pattered onto marble. One drop, then another, then more. Ethan was breathing hard now, terrified. Nora lowered her mouth near his ear. "Do you hear that?" He gasped. "What?" "Your pulse." Her voice was calm. "It's telling me exactly where to cut." Ethan swallowed against the blade. "You little witch!" "No," Nora said. "I am Arthur Vale's daughter." The terrace door opened somewhere down the hall. Calvin's footsteps. Jonah's. Too late. Nora raised her voice. "Stay where you are." The footsteps stopped. Calvin said, "Miss Vale, Ethan has a gun on the floor and blood on his hand. If either of you moves before I say so, he dies confused." No one moved. Ethan let out a broken laugh. "You think Declan will thank you? You think he wants this version of you?" Nora tightened the cane against his throat. "I don't care what Declan wants." A phone vibrated on the floor near Ethan's pocket. Once, twice. Nora heard the rhythm. Burner phone. Cheap motor. Not his usual device. "Calvin," she said. "Yes, ma'am. Pick up the phone near his left hip. Do not touch the gun." Footsteps approached carefully. Ethan tried to shift. The blade pressed closer. He stopped. Calvin retrieved the phone. "Screen says private number." Nora smiled faintly. "Answer it." Calvin hesitated. "Miss Vale." "Speaker." The call connected. For a second, only static breathed through the room. Then a man's voice emerged, smooth and old and patient. "Ethan." Nora felt the name Malcolm Rourke before anyone said it. Ethan closed his eyes. Nora leaned closer to the phone. "Ethan is busy bleeding." Silence. Then the man laughed softly. "Nora Vale." Her skin went cold. "My sister's child." The room went quiet enough for the rain to sound like applause against the glass. Nora's grip did not loosen. Malcolm continued. "I wondered if Arthur taught you teeth." Nora said, "He taught me music. Same thing in his hands." The voice was almost warm. That made it worse. "Put Ethan on," Malcolm said. Nora lowered the blade a hair. Ethan choked out, "I had her. I had the page." Malcolm sighed. "No, Ethan. You had a story she gave you because you were desperate to feel clever." Ethan's face twisted. Nora understood then. Malcolm had expected this too. Maybe not all of it, but enough. He was testing the room, testing Declan, testing her. The phone crackled. "Nora, Malcolm said your mother used to hum when she lied. Do you—" Nora's heart slammed once. She kept her voice steady. "Tell me where she is." A long pause. Alive enough to matter, dead enough to regret. Nora's hand tightened so hard the cane grip bit into her palm. Ethan whimpered as the blade moved. Malcolm's voice softened. "Bring me the song and I will tell you which." Nora leaned toward the phone. "You broke into my home. You killed my father. You sent a rat into this room, and now you want me to walk toward your voice like a child in the dark." "No," Malcolm said. "I want you to understand that Declan Cross cannot protect what he does not understand." The call ended. For a moment, nobody spoke. Then the private elevator chimed. Not the main one. The private one. Declan's biometric override. The doors opened with the force of a storm. Declan Cross entered with Miles behind him, both soaked, both armed, both carrying the smell of smoke and rain and fresh violence. Declan stopped 3 steps inside the room. Nora stood in the center of his penthouse blind eyes, lifted blade at Ethan Pierce's throat, blood pooling near her bare feet. The golden cage had finally shown him what kind of bird he had locked inside. Declan lowered his gun slowly. Nora. She did not move. He sold you to Rourke for $5 million in the South Docks. Miles stared at Ethan. Son of a bitch. Declan's voice went very quiet. Is that true? Ethan sobbed through his teeth. She's got the ledger in her head. The words landed. Every man in the room seemed to feel them. Declan looked back at Nora. Not at the blood, not at the blade. At her. For once, he looked like a man who had arrived too late to a truth that had been standing in front of him the whole time. Nora retracted the blade with a soft click. Ethan collapsed onto the marble, clutching his ruined wrist. Nora stepped away from him and turned toward Declan's voice. My father didn't leave me defenseless, she said. Her breathing was steady. Her face was wet, but not with fear anymore. And neither did my mother. The words left Nora's mouth quietly, but they struck the room harder than the gunshot Ethan had fired into the glass. Declan Cross stood near the private elevator with rain dripping from his hair and blood drying on the cuff of his shirt. Miles Grady had his pistol trained on Ethan Pierce, who lay curled on the marble floor, one hand pressed against his ruined wrist, his face gray with shock. No one moved toward Nora. That was new. Since the moment she had stumbled into Declan's arms at the Rainier Grand, every man around her had moved as if she were something breakable, something to shield, something to lift, guide, contain, hide. Now they looked at her as if the room had tilted, and she was the only one who had known the floor was never level. Declan lowered his gun completely. Nora, he said. Her name sounded different in his mouth now. Not softer, not possessive. Careful. She turned her face toward him, still holding the white cane in her right hand. The blade had retracted, but the memory of it remained in the air. Blood ticked from Ethan's wrist onto the marble, steady as a clock. You came back fast, she said. Declan's jaw worked once. The hangar was empty. Miles cursed under his breath. Not empty, staged. Burned trucks, dead radios, enough noise to pull us across town. Rourke wanted the building thin. Nora nodded. He wanted to know who would open the door. Ethan gave a strangled laugh from the floor. You think you're so clever. Nora turned toward his voice. No, I think you're loud. His breathing hitched. She stepped closer. Declan moved half a step, then stopped himself. Good. Nora heard that choice. Heard him fight the instinct to intervene and lose to the truth of what he had just witnessed. Ethan tried to push himself upright with his good hand. Miles crossed the room and planted a boot between his shoulder blades. Stay down, Miles said. Ethan groaned. Nora crouched slowly beside him, careful of the blood. Careful of the gun still lying several feet away near the piano leg. Calvin had already kicked it out of reach. Jonah stood near the terrace door, pale and ashamed. Nora lowered her voice. You told Rourke I had the page. Ethan spat a red thread onto the marble. You do. No, she said. I let you believe there was a page because men like you understand paper. Paper can be stolen, burned, sold. You needed the secret to be something you could hold. Ethan looked up at her with hatred wet in his eyes. What is it then? Nora smiled faintly. A song. Miles glanced at Declan. Declan did not look away from Nora. She stood and crossed to her cello. Her bare feet moved through the room without hesitation. She knew the table was 4 steps away. The piano bench was 2 more. The case sat open beside it, the inner pocket still untouched. Nora reached inside and took out Rain Over Mercer Street. The old sheet music trembled only because the paper was thin. Her hand did not. Declan came closer. Arthur encoded the ledger in that piece. Nora ran her fingers over the first line. Not all of it in the page. In the music, Declan said, in the way he taught me to remember it. The room fell still again. Nora set the paper on the piano and touched the notes as if greeting old scars. My father used to say numbers were ugly unless you gave them rhythm. When I was little, he made games out of everything. Traffic lights were intervals, phone numbers were melodies, bank signs were chords. I thought he was helping me learn music. She swallowed. He was teaching me to carry information without knowing I was carrying it. Declan's voice was low. You were a child. I was his child, Nora said, and he knew what hunted us. The words had no accusation in them. That made them heavier. She touched the first measure. Quarter notes are digits. Half notes separate account groups. Rests mark breaks between banks. Key changes indicate countries. G minor for Switzerland. E minor for the Caymans. D major for domestic accounts. Tempo changes identify the type of shell company. Miles stared at the sheet music. Jesus Christ. Nora continued. The first movement is cross money, old routes, emergency reserves, political protections. The second movement is Rourke infrastructure, ports, clubs, shipping fronts, judges, police captains. The third movement is different. Declan stepped closer. What is the third? Nora's hand paused over the page. My mother. No one spoke. Rain hit the cracked glass in uneven strokes. Nora heard Declan breathe in, slow and controlled. Lena's location. Maybe. Maybe her trail. Maybe proof she lived longer than he told me. Ethan laughed weakly. Malcolm said alive enough to matter, dead enough to regret. Miles pressed his boot harder into Ethan's back. Shut your mouth. But Nora did not flinch from the words. She had already let them in. Pain was less frightening when named. Declan said, How long have you known? That the music was strange years. That it held the ledger. Nora folded her fingers over the page. Tonight. Declan was silent. Nora turned toward him. But I knew something was wrong long before tonight. My father made me memorize this piece after the crash. I was 15 and angry enough to refuse anything that sounded like comfort. But he had recorded himself playing it before he died. A tape, old, damaged, barely clear. I listened until I could hear the shape of his hands in the pauses. Declan's voice changed. He left you a recording? Yes. I never found it. You were not meant to. That landed between them with quiet force. Declan accepted it. Nora moved back to the cello and sat. Her hands found the instrument by habit, by love, by survival. The wood rested against her body, warm from the room, familiar against her knees. When the doctors told me I might never see again, everyone spoke to me like the world had ended. My father's voice on that tape did not. He told me to listen. He told me to count. He told me if I could hear structure, I could find my way through anything. Her bow hovered over the strings, so I listened. She played one note, low, dark. The sound rolled through the penthouse and trembled in the glass. Ethan stopped breathing for half a second. Nora played 4 notes after it, slow, measured. Then a rest. She spoke without lifting the bow. 4-1-7, 9. Break. Swiss. Miles looked at Declan. Declan's eyes stayed on Nora. She played another line. 2-6-6-0. Break. Holding company. Another line. Cayman. Domestic pass-through. Judge with initials RH. Miles said softly. Robert Hensley. Declan's face darkened. Nora stopped playing. There are hundreds of them. Declan looked at the page, then at her. All in your head, not all at once. Music does not work that way. It has to be played, or remembered in sequence. If you ask me for an account in the middle, I might miss it. If I start from the beginning, I can hear the path. Ethan groaned. Rourke will carve it out of you. The room chilled. Declan crossed the distance so fast, even Nora felt the air shift. Miles pulled Ethan up by the collar before Declan reached him, but Declan was already there, his hand closing around Ethan's throat. Not squeezing yet, just holding. That was worse. You opened my home, Declan said. Ethan clawed at his wrist with his good hand. Declan's voice remained quiet. You put a gun to her head. Ethan's mouth opened, but only air came out. Nora stood. Declan. His grip tightened. Ethan's feet dragged against the marble. Declan. Nora said again. This time he heard her. His head turned slightly, but his hand did not let go. Nora walked toward his voice. She stopped close enough to feel his anger like heat off a furnace. If you kill him now, you kill what he knows. Declan's breathing was rough. He knows pain. That is useful only if you ask questions first. Miles looked at her with something like reluctant respect. Declan slowly released Ethan. Ethan collapsed against Miles, coughing. Declan did not look at him. He looked at Nora. You are asking me to let him live. I am telling you not to waste him. There it was again. The shift. The room heard it. Nora did not plead. She did not beg for mercy. She assessed the traitor on the floor like an asset, a threat, a locked drawer with a pulse. Declan studied her as if seeing the final shape of a painting he had mistaken for a sketch. Then he nodded once. Miles. Yeah. Take him below. Soundproof room. Medical kit first. Keep the hand functional enough to hurt. I want every contact, every payment route, every Rourke man he spoke to, and the full access chain he used to clear the elevator. Miles smiled without warmth. With pleasure. Ethan began to panic. No. Declan, listen. She played you. She knew about your men. She knew you were watching. Ask her. Ask your precious little Songbird how long she's been lying to you. Declan did not move, but Nora felt his attention return to her. Miles dragged Ethan upright. Blood smeared across the marble. Ethan laughed through pain. She walked into that hotel on purpose. The words hung there. Calvin looked at Nora. Jonah looked at the floor. Miles stopped dragging Ethan for 1 second, then resumed. Declan raised one hand. Miles stopped. Nora closed her fingers around the cane. Declan's voice was very quiet. Is that true? Nora turned toward him fully. The lie sat available on her tongue. She could have used it. She was good at soft fear. Men believed it because they wanted to. But Declan had given her one honest answer after another, when lies would have protected him. She owed him nothing. Still, the truth came. Yes. The room seemed to breathe in. Declan did not. Nora continued. I knew someone had followed me for years. Not always the same men, not always close, but patterns repeat. Engines, cologne, shoes. A man outside my building who changed newspapers but never changed his stance. A car that came every Thursday after rehearsal and left 2 minutes after I got inside. Declan said nothing. His silence was the sound of a man losing an illusion. Nora's voice stayed steady. I did not know your name at first. Then I heard it in a hallway at a donor event. One of your men took a call. He said, Mr. Cross wants her route changed. I remembered. Declan looked away. Only for a second. But Nora heard fabric shift at his collar. His hand must have moved there a rare tell. She went on. 3 weeks ago, someone broke into my apartment while I was at rehearsal. They moved things badly. Rourke's people. Not yours. They smelled like river mud and cheap leather, and one of them cracked the left hinge on my pantry door. Your men fixed it the next morning." Calvin muttered a curse under his breath. Nora said, "That is when I knew the old danger had returned." Declan's voice was rough. "Why didn't you run?" "Where?" He had no answer. "Police," she asked. "My landlord, a friend with a sofa and one deadbolt. You said it yourself. This world follows power, so I found power." Miles was still holding Ethan, but even he listened now. Nora turned her face toward the cracked window. "I knew you were at the Rainier Grand because your men are not as quiet as they think. One of them mentioned the meeting outside the concert hall. I knew Rourke's people had eyes on my block. I knew if I stayed home they would take me. So I walked into the storm. Declan said, 'You could have died, so could you. That is not the same.' 'No,' Nora said. 'It is only the same when it happens to men.'" The words struck him. She stepped closer. "I did not know you would say Songbird. I did not know about my mother. I did not know the whole shape of the ledger. But I knew this. If Rourke wanted me and you had spent 10 years making sure he could not have me, then the safest place to force my enemies into the open was beside you." Declan's voice was quiet. "You used me." Nora did not soften it. "Yes." The room waited for his anger. It did not come. Instead, Declan let out one breath, almost a laugh, but darker. "I spent 10 years thinking I was the only one hiding in your life." Nora's mouth curved faintly. "You were just the loudest shadow." Miles looked like he wanted to laugh and valued his life enough not to. Ethan, however, smiled through blood. "She will ruin you." Declan turned toward him. "No," he said. She already improved the room. Miles actually did laugh once. Short. Surprised. Ethan's smile died. Declan nodded. "Take him." Miles dragged Ethan toward the service hall. Calvin followed. Jonah went to clean the gun and secure the terrace. The elevator at the far end opened with a private tone, then closed around Ethan's pleading curses. The penthouse emptied until only Nora and Declan remained. Rain ticked against broken glass. The room smelled of blood gun smoke, wet wool, and cello varnish. Nora stood beside the piano, the cane in one hand, her father's music within reach. Declan did not come closer. For once he let distance speak. "You should have told me," he said. Nora turned her head slightly. "Would you have let me walk into that hotel? No. Then I did the right thing." His silence admitted it. She heard him move to the bar. A bottle opened. Glass touched glass. He poured something but did not drink. "You let me wrap my coat around you," he said. "I was cold. You let me bring you here. I needed the building. You let me think you were terrified. I was terrified." Declan stopped. That truth altered the air. Nora's voice lowered. "Do not mistake courage for the absence of fear." Ethan put a gun to my head. My hands shook. My scalp still hurts where he pulled my hair. "I am not made of steel, Declan." He set the glass down. "No," he said. "Steel bends." She almost smiled. He stepped closer now, slowly enough that she could refuse the distance if she wanted. "You are angry," he said. "Yes. With me. Yes. With Arthur." Her breath caught. Declan's voice softened. "With Lena." Nora looked down. Blindness did not spare her from seeing inward. That was the cruelty of it. "Yes," she whispered. Declan stopped a few feet away. "I am angry too. At them, at myself, at Rourke, at my father. At yours for being smarter than all of us and still dying. At your mother for leaving you a letter instead of a childhood. At every man who saw you and thought fragile." Nora listened. "And at you?" she asked. Declan's answer came after a pause. Yes. For using you. For risking yourself without telling me. That sounds like ownership again. It is fear. Dress it however you want. It still reaches for the same lock. Declan absorbed that. Then he said, "Teach me the difference." The words unsettled her more than any order could have. Nora turned toward him, between what protection and a cage. The rain softened. Somewhere below, a siren rose and faded through the city. Nora should have said no. She should have held the line clean and hard. But nothing in this room was clean anymore. Not grief, not anger, not attraction. Not the way Declan Cross could look at violence without blinking and still stop himself from touching her because she had not invited his hand. She answered carefully. A cage decides for me. Protection tells me the danger and lets me choose. Declan said, "Even if your choice gets you killed, my choices have consequences. So do yours. And if I cannot stand by and watch, then turn away." A quiet breath left him. "I do not think I can." Nora stepped closer this time. "Then learn." For several seconds they stood close enough that she could smell the storm in his clothes. He smelled like smoke rain whiskey and the iron trace of the life he had chosen or inherited, or both. His hand lifted, stopped, waited. Nora heard the restraint. It was almost a question. She answered by taking his wrist and guiding his hand to the side of her face. His palm was warm, rough, careful in a way she did not expect from hands that had done so much damage. His thumb brushed near the crescent scar below her jaw. Her breath caught. Declan noticed. "Did I hurt you?" "No." He did not move. Nora leaned just slightly into his touch. Not surrender, not forgiveness. A decision made in the space between danger and want. Declan's voice lowered. "You terrify me." Nora's lips parted. "Good." His thumb stilled. Then he laughed softly, and this time the sound did not feel stolen from a stranger. It felt earned by the ruin around them. His phone rang. The spell broke, but not completely. Declan answered his hand, falling from her face only after she released his wrist. Miles's voice came through. "Ethan is talking." Declan's eyes hardened. Nora heard it in the silence. Miles continued. "Rourke has a private relay near the waterfront. Ethan opened the building through a ghost credential tied to an old Cross account. There is more. Rourke does not just want the ledger, he wants the third movement." Nora's pulse changed. Declan looked at her. "Why?" Miles said, "Because Lena Vale may still be alive, and Ethan says Rourke has been using her for leverage for 10 years. The room went out from under Nora. Declan caught her only because this time she reached first. Her hand gripped his sleeve. Not for protection, for balance, for 1 human second. Declan said into the phone. Where Miles answered, "Ethan does not know, but he knows who does. A courier comes through the old waterfront exchange at 2 in the morning. Declan looked at Nora. He did not issue an order. He did not tell her to stay. He waited. Nora's fingers tightened on his sleeve. "My father left the third movement for me," she said. Declan's voice was low. "Yes. And Rourke has my mother. Maybe." Nora let go of him and walked back to her cello. Her hands were cold now, but steady. She placed Rain over Mercer Street on the stand and set the bow against the strings. Declan remained where he was. "Tell Miles to bring a recorder," Nora said. Declan did not move. Nora drew the first note from the cello deep and trembling, and the old room seemed to lean toward her. "Arthur hid the road in the song, so we start at the beginning." Nora said it with the bow already moving, her body bent slightly over the cello, as if she were listening to a voice pressed beneath the wood. The first note rose through Declan Cross's penthouse, deep and wounded, carrying rain memory, and the kind of grief that did not ask permission before entering a room. Declan stood behind her silent. For once, he did not command the space. Nora did. The cracked window had been covered. Ethan's blood had been wiped from the marble, though Nora could still smell the copper ghost of it under lemon cleaner. Men moved differently around her now. Softer, not because they thought she was fragile, but because they had finally learned that silence around Nora Vale was not emptiness. It was territory. Miles returned with a small recorder and placed it on the piano. "It's running," he said. Nora nodded once. "Do not interrupt unless I ask." Miles glanced at Declan. Declan's answer was immediate. "You heard her." That small surrender mattered more than Nora wanted it to. She began again. Rain over Mercer Street unfolded measure by measure. To anyone else, it would have sounded like an old sorrow given shape. To Nora, every rest had weight. Every key change opened a door. Every repeated note pointed somewhere her father had buried the truth. "First movement," she said, playing slowly. "Cross reserve accounts. Not the old ones. Emergency channels. Arthur changed them after Rourke found the first route." Miles wrote fast. Declan listened without moving. Nora continued. "G minor. Switzerland. 4 accounts. 1 belongs to a judge. 1 to a port official. 1 is not a person. It is a clinic." Declan's voice sharpened. "A clinic?" Nora played the phrase again, slower. "Yes. Private. No public registry. The name is hidden in the rhythm." She tapped the bow lightly against the strings. 31312, Mercer Medical Trust. Miles was already searching on a secured tablet. "Nothing public," he said. "Then it is real," Declan answered. Nora's fingers tightened. "My mother." No one said anything. She moved into the second movement. The melody shifted darker now, restless under the surface. "This is Rourke infrastructure," she said. "Ports, warehouses, police channels, men he owns, men he fears." Arthur separated them by tempo. She played. Miles recorded names as she spoke them. Declan's face hardened with each one. A deputy commissioner, a federal clerk, a shipping inspector, 2 bankers, a retired doctor who was not retired. Every secret came out of the cello like a body pulled from deep water. Then Nora reached the third movement. Her hand paused. The silence felt alive. Declan stepped closer, but not too close. "Nora, I'm here." She was not sure whether she said it to him or to herself. The third movement began with a simple pattern her father used to play when she was small. 4 notes a rest, then 4 notes again. Nora had once thought it was a lullaby. Now she heard the numbers hidden inside it. "Waterfront Exchange," she said. Miles looked up. "That matches Ethan's courier." Nora kept playing. 2 in the morning. Slip 17. Not a warehouse. Below it. Declan turned to Miles. "Old smuggling tunnel." Miles nodded. "Prohibition era. Sealed on city maps, not in our maps." Nora's bow trembled once, then steadied. "There is a name after the location." She played the line again. Her mouth went dry. "Lena." Declan's voice was careful. Alive. Nora kept listening. The music fell into a minor turn, then held on a rest that lasted too long. "I do not know." The admission hurt worse than certainty. Declan moved close enough that she felt him beside her. "We go to the waterfront," he said. Nora stopped playing. "We..." He did not hesitate. "You and me." That was not the answer she expected. It made her turn her face toward him. "You are not going to lock me upstairs?" "No." Not going to tell me it is too dangerous. It is dangerous, and you already know." For a moment, Nora could not speak. Declan Cross had finally learned the shape of the door. He was not opening it for her. He was standing beside it. Miles broke the silence. "We move quiet. Small team. If Rourke has eyes on the streets, a full convoy announces us." Declan said, "You mean Nora? 2 cars. Calvin drives the second. Jonah stays on building security. Clara moves Elise to the safe apartment." Nora lifted her head. Elise Declan's voice softened. "Rourke knows your attachments now. I am not waiting for him to discover the rest." She wanted to argue. She did not. Some cages were built from fear. Some shields were held up because the arrows were real. The difference, she was learning, was whether someone still let her hold a weapon. They left at 1:30. Seattle at night sounded different from above and below. From the penthouse, it had been distant, softened by height and glass. On the street, the city pressed close again. Wet tires, bar doors opening, laughter from people too drunk to know the shape of the dark around them, the low moan of a ferry horn moving across the bay. Nora sat in the back of a black sedan with Declan beside her. This time she did not press herself against the door. This time no one put a glass in her hand and told her to stop shaking. Her cello lay across her lap in its case. Her cane rested against her knee blade, hidden grip warm from her palm. Declan spoke quietly. "At the waterfront, you stay behind my left shoulder." Nora turned toward him. "Try again." He exhaled through his nose. "At the waterfront, tell me where you want to stand." "Better. Do not make me regret learning. Do not make me regret teaching." Miles muttered from the front seat, "God help us." For the first time that night, Nora almost laughed. The car turned downhill. She felt it in her stomach, in the change of tire sound, in the salt thickening the air. The waterfront came alive through her senses. Water against pylons, chain links moving in wind, old wood swollen with rain. Somewhere nearby, a gull cried like something half human and half lost. They stopped before the pier. No one opened Nora's door until she did it herself. Declan noticed. Good. Cold rain touched her face. Not a downpour now. A thin, steady mist that clung to skin and hair. Nora stepped onto wet concrete and swept her cane once. Open space ahead. Water to the right. Men breathing nearby. 4 of Declan's people spread wide. Miles on her left. Declan close on her right, not touching. Nora listened beneath the obvious sounds. A generator hummed somewhere below the pier. 2 sets of footsteps under the boards. A metal gate moving gently in wind. Then a voice from the dark. "You brought her after all." Malcolm Rourke. Nora knew him now without introduction. The smoothness, the patience, the warmth worn like a beautiful glove over a rotten hand. Declan's gun was already out. "Step into the light," Declan said. Malcolm laughed softly. "Still giving orders in rooms you do not own." Nora turned her face toward the voice. "He owns enough." A pause. Then Malcolm said, "Lena's daughter has teeth." Nora held her cane steady. "Where is she?" "Your mother. My mother." The correction mattered. Malcolm let the silence stretch. She was always difficult to keep. Declan's voice went cold. "Answer her." Malcolm clicked his tongue. "There he is." The king with his leash pulled tight. Nora stepped forward before Declan could respond. Not far. Just enough to make every man around her shift. "Do not talk to him when I ask the question." Malcolm went quiet. Nora heard him reassessing her. "Good. I have the song," she said. "I know. No, you know I can play it." "That is not the same thing." Malcolm's voice lowered. "Arthur made you clever. Arthur made me patient. Lena made me hard to catch. You made me angry. A soft sound came from under the pier. A door opening. Nora turned her head slightly. Miles heard it too. Declan's men moved. Malcolm said, "Careful. There are barrels under this pier older than your father's sins and twice as explosive." Declan's voice remained even. "You rigged the pier. I insured it." Nora focused. There. Beneath the pier, 2 men. One nervous, one injured or old, dragging a foot. A third sound almost hidden. A woman breathing through cloth. Nora's heart stopped. "Lena," she whispered. The breathing changed. A muffled cry. Malcolm sighed. Family reunions are so untidy. Declan moved, but Nora caught his sleeve. He stopped. Her hand was not a plea. It was a command. "Where is the trigger?" she asked. Miles answered under his breath. "Could be on him. Could be remote. Could be dead switch." Nora listened to Malcolm breathe. Smooth. Too smooth. Not afraid enough for a man holding a trigger in his own hand. She turned her face slightly toward the water. The generator below hummed unevenly. Every few seconds it clicked. Not a generator. A timer relay. Nora spoke softly. Miles beneath the pier left side near the third support. "There is a relay box clicking every 7 seconds. Miles did not question her. He moved. Malcolm's voice sharpened for the first time. "Stop." Declan fired once. Not at Malcolm. At the light above him. Glass shattered. Darkness shifted. Men shouted. Nora moved at the same time, dropping low as a bullet passed where her shoulder had been. Declan's hand found her back only long enough to guide her behind a steel post, then released. Choice, not cage. The pier exploded into controlled chaos. Gunfire cracked over the water. Declan's men moved with brutal precision. Miles disappeared below the pier. Nora crouched behind the post counting sounds. 2 enemies ahead, one reloading, one moving toward her right. She lifted her cane. The man came too close. Nora struck his ankle, heard the bone give, then drove the cane upward into his throat. He fell choking into the wet boards. Declan was 3 steps away, fighting another man with the calm efficiency of someone who had done violence too long to make it dramatic. Malcolm retreated toward the lower stairs. Nora heard him. So did Declan. "Nora," he said. "I know." They moved together. Down the narrow stairs, the air turned colder and thick with mildew, salt gasoline, and old wood. The hidden level beneath the pier was low and dark. Nora could hear water slapping just beyond the supports. Miles shouted from somewhere left. "Relay is dead. We have 5 minutes before the backup circuit wakes up." Declan answered. "Find the woman." Malcolm's voice drifted from ahead. "You should have left the past buried." Nora walked toward him. Declan stayed beside her, not in front. The tunnel opened into a storage chamber. There were 3 heartbeats inside. Malcolm, a guard, and a woman. The woman's breathing was ragged but alive. Nora's voice broke despite her effort. "Mom." A muffled sob answered. That sound tore through 10 years of lies more violently than any bullet. Declan shot the guard before the man could lift his weapon. Malcolm moved behind Lena and pressed a gun to her head. Nora heard the shift of metal against skin. "Another step," Malcolm said, "and she dies as she should have died years ago." Declan froze. Nora did not. She listened. Lena was tied to a chair, rope against wood, Malcolm behind her, gun in right hand. His breathing had changed. Fear now. Hidden, but there. Nora held up her cane and let it fall from her hand. It hit the floor. Declan turned his head slightly. Nora took 1 step forward. "Nora," he warned softly. She ignored him. Malcolm laughed. "That is better. No blade, no tricks." Nora's voice was low. "You think music is a trick because you never understood it. I understood your father well enough to kill him. Pain flashed white inside her. She let it show. Malcolm liked pain. Let him look at it. "You did," she whispered. "And he still beat you?" His breathing sharpened. "No." "Yes. You spent 10 years looking for a ledger in paper safes, banks, instruments. He put it in the one place you could not search." Malcolm's voice darkened. "Your head. My heart," Nora said. The word made him hesitate. 1 second. "Enough." Lena moved. Not much. Just a violent jerk of her bound shoulder against Malcolm's gun arm. Nora heard the muzzle shift away from her mother's skull. Declan fired. Malcolm screamed. The gun hit the floor. Nora dove toward the sound of her cane, seized it, and snapped the blade open before Malcolm could recover. She crossed the space and placed the tip beneath his chin. Declan was already at Lena's side, cutting the ropes. Nora stayed with Malcolm. He was on his knees, clutching his bleeding hand, hatred pouring off him like heat. "You think this makes you free?" he spat. Nora leaned close. "No. It makes you finished." Behind her, Lena's voice came broken and hoarse. "Nora." The blade trembled. "Just once." Nora turned. Her mother stood with Declan's coat around her shoulders, older than any memory, thinner than any dream, alive in a way that made the world hurt. Nora took one step, then another. Lena reached for her but stopped before touching, as if she understood that even love needed permission after so many years. Nora closed the distance herself. Her mother's arms came around her. The scent was unfamiliar and familiar at once. Rain medicine, faint lavender, and something warm that lived beneath memory. Nora did not cry at first. Then Lena whispered, "My little light." And the years broke. Declan looked away. Miles entered with blood on his cheek and a cut across his brow. "Backup circuit is dead. Pier is clear. Rourke men are down or running." Declan turned to Malcolm. The old man was trying to stand. Declan crossed to him and grabbed him by the collar. For years this moment had belonged to Declan's rage, to Arthur's debt, to the war between Cross and Rourke. But he did not decide. He looked at Nora. Nora held her mother's hand. She listened to Malcolm breathing wet and furious. She thought revenge would sound louder. It did not. It sounded tired. "Do not kill him here," she said. Malcolm laughed weakly. "Mercy." Nora turned toward him. "No. Witnesses." Declan's mouth curved slightly. Nora continued. "He wanted the ledger. Give him the city instead. Every name, every account, every judge, cop, banker, and senator. Send it where it hurts him most. Let him live long enough to watch every protected door close." Declan looked at her like the world had shifted again, and he welcomed the fall. "As you wish." Miles pulled Malcolm up. This time, no one called Nora fragile. By dawn, the first files went out, not to the police alone. Declan was not naive enough for that. The clean world had dirty hands. So Nora chose targets like notes in a cord. One file to a federal prosecutor outside Washington state. One to a journalist Arthur had marked trustworthy. One to an internal affairs office with no Rourke names attached. One to a judge who owed neither Cross nor Rourke because he owed his life to Lena. By sunrise, accounts froze. By breakfast, Rourke's docs were locked. By noon, men who had sworn loyalty to Malcolm Rourke stopped answering their phones. Seattle did what cities always did when power changed hands. It pretended to be surprised. Lena was taken to a private doctor Clara trusted. Nora sat beside her the whole time. There were too many questions for one morning, too many wounds for one apology, but Lena held her hand and did not let go. "I heard you play once," Lena whispered as the doctor cleaned a cut near her temple. Nora turned toward her. "When Benaroya Hall. You were 17. I sat in the back row with a scarf over my hair and cried so hard a stranger handed me a napkin. Nora's throat tightened. You were there. Whenever I could be. The answer hurt. It also healed something small and stubborn. Later, when Lena slept, Nora stepped onto the private terrace of the penthouse. The rain had stopped. Seattle was gray and gold beneath a pale morning sky. Ferries crossed the water. Traffic moved. Somewhere below, the city carried on unaware that one family's ghosts had torn open its underworld overnight. Declan came to stand near her, not too close. The space between them had changed again. Nora felt him there, steady and quiet. "Malcolm is alive," he said. "For now. He will not stay powerful. No. He will try to bargain. Let him." Declan looked out over the city. "You know what you did today." Nora smiled faintly. "I played a song. You took apart an empire. My father wrote the notes. You chose how to play them." She accepted that in silence. A gull cried somewhere over the water. Nora touched the bird charm on her cello case. "Where does this leave us?" she asked. Declan did not answer quickly. Good. Fast answers were often lies. "At the beginning," he said. Nora turned toward him. "Of what?" "Whatever you choose." The words moved through her softly. No demand, no claim, no lock. She stepped closer until his sleeve brushed her hand. "I was never yours, Declan." His voice was quiet. "I know, but you may stand beside me." A breath left him rough and almost broken. "That is more than I deserve." "Yes." He laughed softly. She liked the sound more than she wanted to. Then his hand lifted, slow enough to ask. Nora let him touch her cheek. His thumb rested near the crescent scar, no longer a mark of helplessness, but a place where the past had failed to kill her. Declan leaned closer. Nora met him halfway. The kiss was not gentle exactly. Nothing between them had earned that word yet. It was careful hungry, restrained by the knowledge that want without choice was only another kind of violence. His hand stayed at her jaw. Hers closed around his shirt, holding him there because she wanted to, not because she needed balance. When they parted, the city below was waking. Declan rested his forehead lightly against hers. "What do you want now, Songbird?" The name did not hurt this time. It ached. There was a difference. Nora listened to Seattle, to the water, to the wind, to her mother breathing behind glass, to the man in front of her dangerous and flawed, and finally learning how not to hold too tightly. She answered with the truth. "I want my life back." Declan nodded, and after that, Nora's smile was small. "Then I decide what to do with the Empire." Far below, sirens began to rise across the city one after another like instruments tuning before a performance. Nora turned toward the sound. For 10 years, men had searched for Arthur Vale's ledger. They had hunted paper money bloodlines and ghosts. They had never understood that the most dangerous thing he left behind was not hidden in a safe or buried in an account. She had walked through their world with a white cane, a cello, and a name whispered by the dead. They had mistaken blindness for weakness, silence for surrender, music for grief. Now the song was out, and every wolf in Seattle had heard it.